Guys, Shay Newton here with Financial Journey. Today we're going to talk about should you leave your 401k with your old employer. So everybody's plan is different and it depends on where you're going. So I'm just going to give you 6 things to consider when thinking about this and evaluating it. Okay, first is cost. So you have to know what your plan costs you. And, this could be administrative costs. It could be, underlying investment expenses. You can get these costs from your plan sponsor. You should get a summary plan description every year. There's also a summary annual report that's available to you if you request it. Sometimes you can see some fees on statements. And as far as investments, you can actually go in and dial into specific investments and look at their actual description and get the expenses from there. So cost is definitely one factor. Group plans typically are cheaper because just like Costco, if you buy in bulk, things cost less. And, cheapest isn't always better. So you really have to weigh the decision, on cost. What are you getting where you are, and what's going to be the value and service that you might get moving it elsewhere, and, see if those things align for you. All right, next thing to consider, investment selection. So you are subject to the investments that are in your plan. That's it. That's all you got. So if you move it to an IRA, then you have the opportunity to pick different types of investments and have your own selection. The next thing to consider is control and flexibility. All right. So you are subject to your plan's limitations if you leave it at your employer. Let me give you some examples of this. So let's say you want to take some money out and you've got a portfolio with lots of different investments. You like your allocation. You want to take $1,000 out. Well, the plan might say, well, which fund or investment do you want to take it from? And you're like, no, I want to pull it from all of them so I can keep the allocation the way that I have it. And you might not have the opportunity to do that. So that could be one limitation. Another is you want to take monthly distributions, and the plan might not allow you to do that. Or if you want to have, withholding, most plans will withhold for federal taxes, but a lot of them won't withhold for state taxes. So that'd be something that you'd have to do on your own. So you have greater flexibility and control, when it's not subject to the plan limitations. Next is qualified charitable distributions. So once you reach a certain age, you are required to start taking money out of your retirement plans because the government wants to get their tax revenue. One thing that you are allowed to do, though, is a qualified charitable distribution from an IRA. And what that means is you can take money from the amount that you're required to take and send it directly to the charity. That way, that money never even comes into income on your tax return at all. So, it's better than a deduction because you never even bring it into income, and you've already, you're able to get the charity more money. But this can only be done from an IRA, cannot be done from a 401k. So remember that if you're charitably inclined and that's something that you want to do, you won't be able to do it from your employer plans. Next, what happens if your employer goes out of business? Well, luckily, your employer is required to keep your 401k assets separate from their accounts. So you shouldn't lose money if they go out of business. But the problem that you may face is if you're not keeping up with your address changes or things like that, they're required to distribute the vested assets in the plan typically within a year. And sometimes that might mean mailing a check. If they've tried to contact you, can't get you, they might just send out a check and then you get a 1099 all this money, taxes, penalties. So that could be a problem. So definitely keep your address up to date and, make sure you're checking on things. Also, if they are out of business and you're trying to roll it over or, even get in contact with them, it could be difficult to reach somebody that has gone out of business. Okay, so our sixth and final thing to think about is protection from creditors. So specifically ERISA. So that is the Employer Retirement Income Security Act. Okay, this protects retirement plans from creditors. So it does not protect you from taxes or qualified domestic relations orders. So you're still going to have to pay those. But if for some reason you get into trouble and creditors are coming after you, within the 401k plan, it's typically all protected. Within the IRA, it's subject to a different rule, and that limit is lower. It actually does have a cap. It's around 1.1 million right now. It's indexed for inflation. So if you've got more money in the 401k, then you would have better protection than you did through an IRA. So again, every 401k plan is different because it actually is governed by a plan document and the rules are set forth in there. Okay, so that's where you're going to get a lot of your information to compare to, a place where you might want to move it to. So, check out the blog at financialjourneyllc.com. You can get a little bit more information on these 6 tips. And as always, if you have any questions, leave a comment or get in touch. Thank you. Have a great day.